In this video, I'm going to take you through the process of creating a 5-minute intuitive study. The assignments we've had before, the 1-minute and the 2-minute, are pretty much leading you up to this 5-minute study. It's basically the same thing, but you have more time and you can start getting into studying the situation, the still life setup, a little more precisely. But again, keep in mind that this is intuitive. We're doing this all by eye. So I don't want you to be worried about, is that drawn just right? Is it placed just right? What I want you to get out of this is just to, through practice, gain a sense of comfort in mark making while you are observing things, drawing what you see, that is. So this is the still life setup I have. Some simple objects I've added. I've got 5 objects now, so that extra time is useful for that. You could at some point do a very complex still life, and it may take you 5 or 10 minutes just to do the initial gesture drawing of it, because there's so much to it. So, well, let's get started. Let me go ahead and move the camera and secure it above the drawing board here. And I think I am pretty much ready to go here. So for fun, another thing I'm doing is starting a timer so that I can kind of keep track. You don't need to do that, but you can if you want, if it interests you. So I'm setting the timer, and I'm going to go ahead and begin and try to, within the first 2 minutes, to get the size and placement of these objects. Very loosely, very loosely. So I'm just going to pick a place to start. Let's start with the red cup. Practicing my ellipses. I have overlap. A little box overlaps this cup, but I'm just drawing it as if I can see through things. There's a little straw inserted in the middle of it there. Doing something like that. I can get through this quicker if I talk less. Remember to extend lines. Don't let yourself get slowed down by trying to draw precise points. Natural objects have a little more freedom to them, but still you want to try to make your size and placement pretty close to what your eye is observing. Glass wine jug here. Let me just remind you also that what you're not seeing is that my eyes are moving back and forth from the still life to the drawing. And I'm actually at 1.5 minutes now, so I'm doing pretty good. I did say 2 minutes, right? So I think I'm doing all right. We have our pomegranate here with its little crown, or whatever you call that, kind of stem, kind of poking out there, and we're done. So my timer is actually at 1 minute and 52 seconds at the moment. So there I've spent the 2 minutes, essentially doing, just a very rough kind of plan. I'm telling myself, showing my eye where these things are in relation to each other and how big they are in relation to each other. Now, what I'd like to do is in the next 3 minutes or so is take a second look now. Maybe slow down a bit, okay, and take a second look and analyze the still life again intuitively, that is just by eye. Whether you know how to use sighting techniques or not, you don't need that here. If you know them, don't use them. Just trust your eye. So look at the still life and see if there's anything that just doesn't look quite right, that something is not right. It's not placed quite right. It's too small or too big. And one thing that I see right away is that while I like the overall arrangement, I think that this cup is actually placed too low. Because after all, look at where the corner of my box is. How could it possibly overlap there? So it's too low, and I think that the top is too small. So I'm going to make a change now. Okay, and this is an intuitive change. It's just by eye that I've noticed this. Now remember that as you make changes, you want to make them a little darker than what came before. Just a bit darker. Okay, so that you're not erasing anything, you're leaving all your marks there. Remember, this drawing is really kind of a record of your struggle to get these relationships down. It's probably not anything you're going to want to show people. It's for you. But there, so I've redrawn the cup. So I'm spending some time. I'm at the 4-minute mark now. I'm spending some time doing that. And I think in the assignment I've asked you to make at least 2 changes. So time-wise we're doing all right there. Now as I look at other things, I can see, yes, something is wrong. What is it? Maybe I'm not exactly sure. But if something said, well, that just, this looks too small, or it's too high, or something like that, go ahead and try to make in this 5-minute, in the 5 minutes that you have, try to make at least 2 changes like this, where I could see as an instructor that, oh, the student drew it here first and then he drew it again there. Well, one thing I think I could do here is that I think the banana too is not placed very accurately, and that the box is actually a little bit too small. So I think what I'm going to do is let's start out just by making this box just a bit bigger. I like this line here. We need to add some meat here, so to speak, at this end of the box. Now I'm past the 5-minute mark here, but that again just kind of show you that that these times that I'm giving you are approximate. After all, this is art, right? So I've made my box a little bit bigger. That seems to look a little more correct. The banana doesn't seem to poke up that far. It does have an arc kind of like this. Extends beyond the box a bit more. So I was sort of short, too high on this end, sort of short on that end. So maybe overall the banana was just placed a little too high. So I'm drawing, notice I'm getting a little more tight with my marks now, as I make corrections. That's okay. But again, it's still pretty loose. Still pretty loose. And so there, I think I'm seeing something a little more accurately now. And I'll end it here. But that's what I'm asking you to do in these 5-minute studies. Basically go through that process that you learned in practicing those 1-minute and 2-minute intuitive studies. And then allow yourself a few extra minutes to maybe just slow the pace down a bit. Study the still life and compare it to your drawing. Try to find at least 2 things that need adjusting. And you're done.